Mm-hmm.
And so now we're off to the East Blue Sea with One Piece. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Will.
Yeah.
Will, okay, episode 4, you and I were talking this week. We're both on the same page about this. And we knew it. We knew it. We kind of figured. However, one of the best cliffhangers. I just love this idea because there was, and maybe why I like it so much is because I was semi-right about something with this one line of dialogue, because at the very end of episode 4, I was very surprised by how quickly the Marines caught up. But we see the Marines are setting their sights on Luffy and Luffy's Grand Mary ship, and Luffy, and like he hears Cannonball, and then he's looking out, and then he sees Admiral Garp, and he says, "Grandpa," and I'm just like, "Are you kidding me, Grandpa?"
Yeah.
Like, and why I want to go back and say I was semi-right is because I told you at the beginning of this series, we have our introduction of Garp, and they talk about they find word about a pirate in a straw hat. And there was something about the way Garp reacted where I was like, now I did go on and say chosen one. There's some kind of myth or history. I didn't take the Star Wars route and say they're related. They were clearly related because they don't look anything alike. So, so I was surprised, but I like it because the 5th episode worked so well consider with that small bit of information. Because it just makes so many, whether it's Luffy, Colby, or Garp, like the shades of gray that are happening with these characters, and this world is just beautiful.
Yeah, I completely agree. Really, the only thing that really stood out to me there are a couple things stood out with me. Episode 4, really don't need to spend too much time on it. The pirates are coming. We are introduced to Usopp, and really, but also the focusing on Usopp and his introduction, and how we learn about him that his father was tied back to the Straw Hat pirate. Gosh, I'm blanking on his name now.
Shanks.
Shanks. Yeah, Shanks. He was part of the exposition to find the One Piece, which was really, really cool. But the one thing I felt that they, everybody has a dream, and that's we're going to get to Zoro here in a second. I didn't find. I mean, I guess I got some glimpse that if he wants to be a captain like Luffy and sail the seas, but I was hoping to get a little bit more. I felt like I got more about him and his feelings for Kaya than I got what was his sense of his grand dream as far as being willing to go with Luffy after all that what transpired in the episode. But
I agree with you where they didn't do as well as they've done with some of the other characters with Usopp. And the more I think about his character, especially when we see him part of the crew in episode 5, is he's not like Luffy. He's not like, I want to be king of the pirates. I want my own crew. But what we do get is this idea of adventure, this wanting to be a part of something. This no longer like he likes to. He's a storyteller, and so his whole life he's had to tell these stories because at the end of the day, it's all fiction, and so like he wants that, he craves that, but he's never had the opportunity. So going with Luffy and the crew, he's now going to be able to experience that. And so I don't think they've said it as directly with him about his dream, which granted, we don't really have a dream for Nami yet either.
No, we don't. We don't. But we're getting bits and pieces of her background and her motivations as far as why she is sticking around with these with the other Straw Hat Pirates, and which I feel, and it will probably get some more with Usopp as we go further. But I just felt that you're introducing a new character, and especially the way they introduced him, as with the flashback to whenever he was a kid, and to your point about telling stories. I mean, he's kind of like the kid who cried wolf too many times, and
Yeah.
and also there were elements about him that we learned, but I just felt like in contrast that with Zoro's story, Zoro's story, I was like locked in. And I love he's the bottom of the cave, and the well, and having to climb out of the well, a la Dark Knight Rises, but the flashbacks, really the bigger thing is the flashbacks to him and his Koya, and sparring, and really setting up who is going to be the greatest swords person in the world. And
Koya's not dead, by the way. Not dead.
Yeah.
I'm saying that now.
Have you watched it?
I seasons when she appears. I called it.
Okay.
Hey, if you don't see them die on screen, they're not dead.
That's right.
Sorry,
that's right. We learned that. We learned that from the Flash. But but his story, I mean, he's just a fascinating character, and it really set up what the things. And when we talk about, I'll put a pin in it till we talked about the 5th episode, but it really does set things up really, really well to give that story arc in that episode more heft as far as what goes on there. But
you need it. Makes sense based on you need that background and that history to know why he wants to duel. What's his face? I have his name written somewhere.
Yeah, I know you're talking. But Mihawk.
Mihawk. Yeah, I keep looking at Mihawk and I'm like, that's not him for some reason.
But other than those were the really. Zoro's story was like, and finding Usopp and it were really the highlights for me as far as episode 4. I mean, the stuff for Kuro, it just, that was the one time in this series where I was kind of like, I did kind of reach. I have to admit, I did reach for my phone on that one because he just wasn't compelling. It was just like, the
Captain Black Pirates.
The Black Cat Pirates.
The Black Cat Pirates, whatever they are.
I almost wish they could have consolidated episodes 3 and 4 because there was not to me.
I go back and forth on it. I think that if they had truncated that even more, because you're dealing with Usopp, you got to get to know Usopp within that. It has to make sense how they get the ship in the long run.
Yeah.
They also have to tell Zoro's backstory. You're also simultaneously dealing with a lot of Garp and Colby's newfound mentorship thing happening, which you think is just, that's a C storyline, but no, that's B. That's storyline B throughout this entire season, because that plays in so heavily with what's going on with Luffy, especially now that we know that going into episode 5, which starts off showing a flashback of Luffy and his grandpa, and the idea that his grandpa really wanted him to be a Marine, but he wanted to be a pirate. Now, I did notice he's already wearing the straw hat. So I don't know where grandpa was just when Luffy was spending all his time with Shanks. So Grandpa, you had your time. You fucked up. You missed it. And so now they're what?
Well, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because if Luffy has a straw hat, Shanks already left. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's like we didn't see Grandpa before, and we were told Luffy has no family, like he's an orphan.
Yeah.
And then we see him playing in the sand, and Grandpa comes, acting like it's just another Saturday afternoon. So I know that they're not going to tell us the whole story. I mean, they got renewed for another season, and there's 27,000 episodes, if not more, of this show, the anime and stuff. But at the same time, it was a bit like, okay, I know we're gonna do some funny things with time, but dude. So you just learn about Garp, why this is so personal for him, and when we see Luffy's able to get away and escape again, I thought it was a very cool thing to hear about this pirate marine alliance in this world, where we hear that Garp, Colby overhears that Garp calls Mihawk, who's a well-known pirate captain, but he's one of, I think, 5 or 7.
Yeah.
And there was an alliance that was formed. And then Colby, being so naive about the world and the way the world works, learns about this and then calls Garp out of it and out on it. And then he's like, "No, kid, you don't know anything." So, and I like it because Garp is right. And I will say it in this episode, Haircut is actually right too.
That's Haircut is right.
Yeah, Haircut is, and Haircut especially is a character who really could be like that Draco Malfoy, evil little, like, oh, I really don't like that character. But there are moments when A, he's right, B, he doesn't hate Colby. He just, like, they're in competition with one another.
Yeah.
And he's annoyed, but at the end of the day, like, so far we haven't seen him do anything really, really evil. He just has his own perspective on the world. And so I just think that's a really interesting thing to do. I had a lot more thoughts. But
No. The thing with Haircut and Kobe too is I think he's indebted to Kobe, at least for saving his life, because the mast came down whenever when Luffy like redirected the the cannonball back to Grandpa's ship, the Garp ship.
I do really like this episode. We get introduced to Sanji. They leave us with a duel between Mihawk and Zoro. And it sounds like Zoro isn't dead.
No. I don't. Yeah, no. It sounds like the way they left it. Because, and again, to your point about the cliffhangers, I had to fight the urge to like continue on, because this was with this ending, and it definitely lends itself to, like, I was talking to a friend of mine today about this show and trying to and sharing with them how much I've been enjoying it and they should watch it. And I shared with her that it is bingeable, in the sense that the way they have these cliffhangers set up, you don't want to wait to, like, I know we've just made a conscious decision to do it weekly and approach them weekly, but it was hard last night, I have to tell you, because I wanted to know what's happening to Zoro.
It was. It's just, so far this show, there has been some awkward writing. There has been some bad acting. Personally, the flashbacks of Zoro, I thought were fine, but I really don't like that kid actor. I didn't think he did a good job at all. I'm like, I can't see you growing up to become Zoro that we know. I just don't see it. But at the end of the day, the characters that we're constantly getting, the history that we're constantly learning about, but not to an extent of where we have to hear five different monologues, or it's still simple. Yet it really fleshes out a very colorful world. Totally. And so far the connections haven't been too like so far Luffy's only related to one Marine. Okay, we'll keep it at that. Hey, we haven't met Colby's parents or grandparents yet, so I'm sure he's related to someone, which we'll meet down the line. Probably a pirate, probably Shanks. Yeah. But it's good so far. It's not just the cliffhangers. I think it's just like, okay, who are we going to meet next?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where what's the next adventure? So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just thinking like, yeah, we met several new people like whenever we meet Mihawk, and we see the bounty and it's like canceled because because the Garp and the pirates having an alliance, and as you noted, Kobe's naivete of the world, it really is this is a lived in world, and they do a great job of world building. Where all these connections make sense, and like when we meet Sanji, and really, he and learns that he loves to cook, and the thing is, he really, he's a very giving person, especially like whenever the pirate comes in, and he's like, look, I'm everyone is going to get fed here. We're not going to let this guy like not have a meal. And it really builds on the thing of how we were introduced to him, at the beginning, as far as, as far as his background, and even like whenever he got busted for not wanting to, he wanted to make nice meals, but they have a menu that they got to follow, and then it gets shipped out to the to be a waiter. But whenever he has an introduction to the Straw Hat Pirates, how the interplays there with the crew, and you can sort of already see the early formations of like, oh yeah, he's gonna join up with the crew here, and I don't need and not even I don't need to see the promotional materials to realize that. So they really do a great job of just pulling all these various stories together, and make it believable that these folks are bonding, and especially like in this fifth episode with Nami and Zoro, and how she's like finally admits, like, I care about you. You're my friend. I don't want you to get into this duel because I don't want anything to happen to you. And when you think back to whenever I don't think we've heard that we're not a crew anymore, at least in these at least in this episode, before they used to joke about, no, we're not a crew, but now they are starting to become a crew. And it's cool really seeing that all to come together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it for us tonight. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, I guess currently known as X, at Will M Polk, WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and Threads at Scene_N_Nerd. And visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.